Okay, folks, you're very welcome to another episode on the DSS Coaching series. Tonight, I am delighted to be joined by Johnny Greville. For anyone that doesn't know Johnny, I'm going to throw it back at you. Who is Johnny Greville?
Good question, yeah. Well, depends on who you ask, but no, I suppose Johnny Greville is, I suppose you could probably, a hurling fanatic is probably one way you could describe me. Love the game, always have, played it, coached it, managing it, and just love to see young fellas and young girls go out and take up a hurl and express themselves and enjoy it as much as I enjoyed it when I was young.
Johnny, where does it all start? Where's the earliest memories or influences?
Okay, that's my earliest memories, and I can still actually vividly remember this part. Westmeath senior hurlers played Dublin in a Leinster Championship game in Croke Park, and back in those days they had a kind of what I call it was a cattle mark near enough down in the bottom of the Hogan stand, in between the Hogan stand and Canal End. They used to come out there underneath that area there, and I was mascot that day. My father was playing in goals. And I was kitted out from head to toe in Westmeath gear, the hurl, the whole lot, no helmet back then. But I still remember standing in the tunnel and looking back down, and David Kilcoyne was captain at the time, so one of the most famous hurlers Westmeath has ever produced, and one of the best hurlers Westmeath has ever produced, and our only all-star. He was captain, and I still remember the steward standing at the gate waiting to let Westmeath out. And I can still remember looking up at David, and David had an O'Neill slitter in his hand. He handed it to me, and he said, "Off you go." So the gate opened, and out I went, ran the length of the field, solo running the ball. In front of us was, I think it was about 38 or 40,000 people in Croke Park. I was about 5 years of age. The Westmeath team coming out behind me, and I kept going out. I'll be honest, it was probably the furthest I ran in the field. I haven't run as far since, but I still remember that vividly, and going down behind the goals and poking out the balls when they were taking shots, and that was probably my earliest memory of being part of a Westmeath setup. And just remember David Kilcoyne and my father that day and against Dublin. I think I can't really remember the results, but they were narrowly beaten that day, and I remember my dad got man of the match. And I got to meet Michael Lester. I still have it up in the house somewhere, a program signed by Michael Lester on the Sunday game, and I got to meet him. So that was probably one of the lasting memories anyway.
Johnny, for anyone that doesn't know Westmeath G and the history of Westmeath, the Greville name in particular is I suppose, glued to the hurling, and it has been a legacy there for the last, I don't know how long. In terms of, I know just yourself for beginning, but there's so many in that family as well that has been involved and has played at inter-county level. Your brothers and fathers, and I suppose your sisters then on top of it as well, and we'll get into that. But for yourself personally, Johnny, you started off in Raharney. What was it like back then? Compared to today?
Yeah, it's completely different. I suppose my playing career back in Raharney, I suppose we weren't really to the forefront of winning championships when I started playing. They just came to the end, so there was a kind of a gap there. Back in Raharney won a championship in 92, 94, and 96. So it was then there was a gap then from that time then until 2006, near enough. So I was lucky enough. The captain hadn't won a medal, hadn't won. If there was two flies going up the wall, I definitely picked the wrong one to win it back then. But right through my underage career, won very little. Weren't really competing at the highest level, but we still had a group of players when we got to, in around 2003, 2004, 2005. That had a bit between their teeth, and we got a championship. We won a championship after a replay in 2006. So our first time winning one, you know, since that back in the late 90s. So that was one, and I just was lucky enough to captain the team back then. And we had some brilliant players, like we had a young John Shaw coming onto the team. We had a younger brother, my own brother Paul, on it with another brother Jimmy, and you know, we all played. There's 5 brothers, and we all kind of played throughout our careers. We got to play. I got to play with my father, even a good story back in an old junior championship match. I was still Lord of Mercy on him. There was what you call him, Adrian Murray, back then was refereeing, and I was captain of the minor hurling team back then as well, and we were doing well in the championship, and we had a championship game the following week, and my father was in goals in the junior match, and I was wing back, and Adrian was refereeing the game, and he was part of the management team of the minor setup back then, and we were playing Castle Potter, I think it was, and anyway, whatever happened anyway, there was a bit of a collision happened, we'll just call it that, and it was me that probably was the instigator of the collision, but my father got the blame of it. My father got a red card, but Adrian said to him going off, he said, look, I can't send him off, we need him next week for the minor. So that was that was one of the times I played with my father anyway, and he had to take a red card for me. But look at there, and you know, Adrian was a great hurling man and a brilliant person as well back then, and had huge energy for Westmeath. You know, and then sure, as time goes on, you know, I got to, I suppose, the end of my playing career at 30. I decided to hang up my boots and went out in the high, I suppose. And we were getting hard to get a manager for our senior team back in 2010, and I just put my hand up. I had previously managed our under 16 team in the club, and I had just finished doing 3 in a row with the Camogie team in the club. They hadn't won the championship in 26 years, and then we 3 of them came all together. So that was a great period as well, and a great learning curve in my coaching career. But again, with great people. You know, I remember Stephen Morley, who's the current Cullion manager, was part of my setup back there, and we had a great relationship, and you know, with great memories there. And you know, that was kind of the start of a long road for Hurling Camogie. Now they're on the road now for 10 in a row now at the minute, and you know, they're really going from strength to strength. And then after that 3 in a row, I decided to put my hand up, and I said I'd take the senior job. And you know, managing players I played with and managing older fellas who were older than me, it was a challenge. But they bought into what I was looking to do. And again, like that, we had an epic county final against Clonkill. We were losing by 7 points with 10 minutes to go, and we came back and clawed it back and won by a point. You know, moving my brother from full back to full forward, and he got the winning goal. With Brian Connaughton, who scored a penalty as well, or a 21-yard free. So that was a really memorable year, and we went on then and had a really good Leinster campaign. We beat Coolderry Kingpins in Offaly. Ken Hogan, I remember, was managing them. We beat them in the quarter final of the Leinster Championship. And then we went on to play Ular to Bala in a Leinster semi-final. And I still can remember that to this day. Foggy day in Mullingar, packed Cusack Park, and you know, it was a goal fest. I think, you know, the game should have really been called off, but we got within a puck of a ball at them anyway. They won by a point in the end, but we were only, you know, a point away or a couple of points away from a Leinster final that year. And you know, that was one of my first real stints as you know, Rahari manager.
And what, I suppose, I know you gave a really good explanation there, but what led you down the path of coaching? Like at the time, when 30 years of age, you not say, I hang up the boots now, I'm only 30, I'll go and live my life, because obviously with GA, you give a huge commitment to it. So what brought you down the actual path of coaching? Or
my club, I suppose, and the passion and the drive to do better. You know, as a player, you're always cognizant of what's going on around you, and you know, the standards are there, and you know, the people are there. When you have a team and you have a group of people with you know, a shared vision, you like to achieve something. Like, you know, there's, you know, like poor old Mayo, like, have had you know, loads of groups of players that could have achieved this, and I suppose maybe did they grasp it as much as they could have the moment I was there, or there was more of an expectation of it coming rather than, they were waiting for it to happen rather than make it happen. And I suppose that's what I decided to do was, look, I'm not going to look on anymore. I'm going to get in there and get stuck in and try and make this happen because, time moves on and teams move on and, there's no time like the here and now. And we were just lucky. Well, I suppose, I'm not going to say lucky. We had a really good team that had a huge bank of resilience in them. And, to answer your question, it was the club, it was the love and the drive and the push to get that taste of a Westmeath Examiner Cup.
Yeah. And from your stint after Harney, if I'm right saying this, obviously I know you're involved in another couple of club teams. Westmeath Camogie came calling then.
Yeah, Westmeath Camogie came calling. I was involved in in the senior intercounty with Brian Hanley as well, back in the day as well, and that came kind of before that, and then the Westmeath Camogie kind of came into it, and it was a tough conversation to have because the year before I took it, another great man out in Clonkill, Alo Egerton, who's drives the underage out there and has been involved in underage setups in Westmeath and is really, really top person, was managing the team or coaching the team the year before, and he asked me to take a session one Friday night, and I still remember the session, still can see the session. So as Friday night arrived up, an inter-county team, you expect a certain level of professionalism, a certain level of expectation when you arrive in. So I arrived in anyway, had a session planned out and designed the session to give maximum impact and to make sure that I hit all the markers that the coaches were looking to hit before they played their I think they were in the junior All Ireland back then, or the Nancy Murray Cup or something along that lines back at that stage. And I'll never forget, after 6 minutes in just as the warm up, so this is just an activation part of the warm up before we were even into the stretching, the players were out of breath. So I stopped the session and I just asked the question. I just said, guys, what has your workload been in the last 5 to 6 days? And they all had played club championship on Tuesday night, and they were expected to go out there and play. And I think it was the Sunday they were playing. Play county on the Sunday, play club, train club on Thursday, train county on Friday, go to club again Saturday, and then back out again Sunday and represent the county. And this was the norm. This was, this is the way it is, and I just shook my head. I said, this shouldn't really be the way it is. There should be a good, there should be a blend of that, not fully one or fully the other, but the players are the ones losing out, and especially the top players. So when I took on the job, those conversations had to happen. So I kind of had to change a culture, and, it was reluctant change by the county board, Westmeath Camogie, and I suppose I probably fell out with them more than I fell in with them at the start to try and get the structures right. But when they seen what we were trying to do, and like the first year I took over, we were beaten by an average of 20-25 points, against teams that we should have really been competing against. And again, it was all down to legacy stuff and stuff that was happening previously, and players maybe not putting the county first when they were part of a county panel. And I changed all that then in year two, and the county board came in line with it, and all of a sudden the whole landscape changed, and all of a sudden the players started to perform at the top level, and we started to build slowly but surely, and again in year two we went on and won the junior All Ireland and moved up to intermediate, and and then from there on in, it was history says the rest of it. Every year after that we went through the ranks, moved up the grades, and eventually got the senior intercounty camogie after 4 years previous, where they couldn't maintain a training session after 6 minutes. So for me, that was the biggest thing, was trying to get the people involved in county boards and involved in the planning process to understand that you can't have it both ways, that there has to be leeway and has to be given each way. And luckily, John Weir went in there as chairperson after that, and bought into the vision that was there, and I think they've had success throughout since.
And I suppose, Johnny, and this is a question I'm going to throw at you. What is your first couple of approaches as a new coach going into a club or a county? Like, how do you approach it? Your first couple of steps, and like I suppose just for people that don't know, even on the Camogie side of things, when you went into that, am I right saying you had like Pamela, your sister involved, or had you
Yeah,
two?
yeah, yeah. No, I had one sister. Yeah, Pamela. Pamela was
Yeah.
involved.
So how do you approach it as a coach, or like I suppose you're heading into Meath, your new Meath senior county manager as well. So how do you approach as a coach going in? What are your first couple of steps?
Yeah, well, the first couple of steps, I suppose, is to make sure that the kind of your philosophies align and the vision aligns with the people at the top, and they're the conversations you have to have first before you step onto a pitch. The plan that you're looking to do and the places where you want to go have to align. And if they don't align, there's going to be friction. There's going to be, you're not going to reach your destination. And that means maybe sitting in a room for hours and having hard conversations. But it has to be a shared vision, and not a vision for, where Johnny Greville wants to be. It's have a vision for where, Meath Hurling wants to be, or Westmeath Camogie wants to be, or Westmeath Hurling wants to be. It's have that shared vision to be able to see that this is where we want to be as a whole. So that when Johnny Greville moves on, that you have a sustainable structure there that can be built upon and that you can move forward with, and that county boards can sit in front of the next manager and say, look, these are staples within our environment and non-negotiables, and this is part of our process. You take that on board, because as you know yourself, every inter-county management team at the moment, every time there's a change, it's a change from top to bottom. It's coaches change, S&C change, so it's having that continuity, and I suppose that's something that I kept when I was with Westmeath Camogie, and we built a kind of a high performance environment, slowly but surely over a course of time, got players to buy into it. Now, not every player bought into it, but the ones that did reap the rewards.
Johnny, what would you say is your coaching philosophy?
I suppose philosophy or principles, whichever way you want to look at it.
Yeah.
Look, it changes over time. I think if I always say, if you stand still, you'll be passed out, and you need to adapt and change with the times. You can't be stuck, in your methods. Your methods need to evolve. You need to adapt. You need to change. And I suppose my philosophy would be, always be flexible, always be fluid, and make sure that that to the core of everything you do is the player. And the player is the center. The player is the one that has to cross that white line. They have to go to war for you every time they go out and put on that jersey, whether it's a club jersey or an inter-county jersey. But they have to be at the center of it. It cannot be coach centered. It cannot be manager centered. It has to be your facilitators. Coaches and managers put the processes in place, put all the structures in place to be able to give the players the best platform to perform. And then it's really important that the players are involved in all of that process. So all those building blocks, players need to be involved in that. So I suppose my philosophy is a player-centered one. The player to the center and to the fore of everything I do, and that they're the ones that I'm looking to make sure, whether it's 10% better or 45% better at the end of the time you're there, that's your goal. That's where you want to be, whether it's individually or collectively. And then if success follows that, and trophies and medals, then it really does prove the point.
What makes a top class player for you? So
it's attitude over ability all the time. And I know that's probably a cliche, and most managers say that, but I would always take a player that has the right attitude over the player that has a top class ability and a poor attitude. And that's a tough one to take, especially in smaller counties, because the talent pool might not be massive, but sometimes you have to take that hit. You have to stick to your goals. You have to remember what the vision is, where you want to go, how you want to get there. And eventually, sometimes these players, a bit of tough love, they eventually come round and see, Jeannie Mac, what, this is going to be a success. Everybody has bought into it. and all of a sudden you change the landscape of what people are looking to do, and that'd be one of the big things I'd say.
Johnny, you've had multiple championship wins, county titles, All Irelands, and so on. But one question I would ask from all the years of coaching: what was your biggest learning curve or biggest regret?
My biggest learning, I'll go with my biggest regret first. My biggest regret is
Answer the phone to me.
no, no, my biggest regret, and this is something I like to say to coaches, when success comes, and even for example, I still just going back to 2010 when Raharney won that championship. My biggest regret from that day is I didn't immerse myself in with the players. I was pulled away by media and by whoever, and I got caught up in that and missed that initial euphoria, that initial adrenaline rush. And ever since then, I always, media are gone to the side, and I get myself, enjoy the moment, because you never know when that moment might come back again. And that's one thing I would say. And you'd see it. I know many times you go to Croke Park on an Ireland final day, and you see the head steward grab the captain or grab the manager, and they're pulling them up to the, I don't agree with that. I think that's taken away from the moment. Like, you're after winning an All Ireland or after winning a county title, and all of a sudden you're pulled away from, the enjoyment of enjoying it with your friends, enjoying it with your family, being immersed in that moment. And that would be my biggest regret. But I've been lucky enough to win a few things since that, and I definitely learned my lesson on that side of it.
What's your biggest learning curve?
My biggest learning curve is, I suppose every manager is the same. Is my biggest learning curve, I suppose, in my early days was, if you're down by a few points or the game's kind of getting away from you, that you hear Matt Adjian, maybe it's not our day, it's not going for us today. All those bits of it, you'd often hear a selector say, it's just not happening today for Jimmy or Jack. My biggest learning curve is, it's not happening for Jimmy or Jack now, but he's got another 35 minutes in front of him that he can make the best 35 minutes of his year. And my biggest learning curve would be to never, not to press the big red panic button too early. Make sure the players understand that, the previous minute is history, but the minute in front of them is there to make whatever they want to make of it. So don't dwell on what's gone, but always focus on what's next. So that'd be one of my biggest learning curves.
I'll go to the flip side of that. What is your greatest achievement to date?
Oh,
yeah, you have many of them now.
Jesus, I don't know. All the achievements were a collective thing, and I said a collective thing. So achievement-wise, they were all major achievements, because I suppose a lot of the things we did, it was backs against the wall. It was always kind of looked upon, maybe, they're not really good, especially with the Camogie for thing. It was always kind of, only Westmeath. We went out and we beat Limerick in our first senior championship match ever. And, that was a huge win. Going back to when, 4 years previous, Kilkenny bet us by 34, Kilkenny's second team bet us by 34 points in a junior championship. So, so achievement-wise, it's probably the Westmeath Camogie, because we climbed the ladder, and, not by chance or not by luck, but with loads of with huge ability, huge talent, a big turnover of players from older to younger, a buy-in that's still there to this day, and a backbone of a team that could still have plenty of success going forward.
Johnny, you've taken up the reins in Meath Senior Hurling as the senior hurling manager for 2025 season. But before you start that, it's probably something I would like to ask you, because you're going to be at that elite level now. What do you make of the current state of the game? at the moment? Is it a good environment, bad environment?
Yeah, that's a good question because it depends on what county you're in. You know, the level you're at and where you're at. You know, the top level counties, the resources they have as regards player pool, you know, the talent is there. So say from Westmeath and Meath, for example, small pockets of hurling, hurling fraternity, you have to maximise the talent you have. Whereas in Tipperary, Kilkenny, you know, Limerick, these places, you know, they have a huge pool of talent. So, you know, that's where they can reap the benefits. Whereas we need everybody to be able to compete. You know, coming into the me job, you know, be down at plenty of matches to date, and you know, there's massive amount of talent in the county, that can be brought forward. But it's important to create the environment. My experience with our inter-county environment over the last number of years, I was involved with Westmeath seniors the last number of years as well, and you know, the environment, the enjoyment is probably not there. You know, for a player, it's too strict, too stringent. You know, you can bring a high performance environment that players can enjoy. And that was probably another big learning curve I had as a manager over the years. It's really important to create an environment that is enjoyable. It becomes part of your life, not your life, and it doesn't take over your day to day. That everybody has to get up and go to work the next morning. You know, mentally, physically, your family, you know, kids, whatever's going on in your life, that it's a way of getting away from, you know, you're coming to training, you're looking forward to going to training, you're going away from training after enjoying it, having a great buzz from it, you know, and you're looking forward to the next session. So for me, inter-county hurling needs to get back to that. And that's something that I think a lot of managers need to park their egos, and really, you know, looking for their pound of flesh. And, you know, I've come across a few of them in my time. You know, their egos took over, and it's more about them and their CV than it is about, you know, what are you going to leave behind you and how is that going to move forward for the county or the team that you're with.
Johnny, if I was to put you head honcho above in Croke Park tomorrow, what would be the one rule change or change approach you would like to see in the GA for the hurling?
In the hurling, I suppose it's the hand pass. I like more fluidity with it because, you know, the players are now moving at a pace and a speed that, you know, a clear strike in action is a delay, you know, and it takes away from the speed of the game, in my opinion. So whether they call it, you know, whatever they want to call it, or change the name of the hand pass, because, you know, 9 times out of 10 players are offloading it from the 4 fingers. It's no clear strike in action. Like, my view is that, you know, if it's a closed fist pass, so if you're looking at a closed fist pass, ball around, and that's a throw ball. But if it's a finger pass and it's sitting on the 4 fingers and it's just being offloaded, which players are getting caught for now, that for me should be the new rule. You know, it should be flexible in that the throw ball, you know, is blown. The referee blows 1.5 now. You know, generally then it's very frustrating, and, you know, no matter what speed the player is going at, getting the clear strike in action, when you have 3 players wrapped around you, you're trying to offload the ball, you know, you have to release it from your fingers and then hand pass it off. It just doesn't work. So I'd like to see that relaxed, maybe more so to look at that. Now, it'd be hard for the referees to manage that, to go from a closed fist to an open hand. But I definitely think they should come up with some terminology anyway that can define it a little bit better and make it easier for the referees, because, you know, it's not fair on them either. You know, they're being directed to blow it, but, you know, it does break the flow of the game, and it does, you know, it does affect the players as well, you know.
Johnny, what is, I suppose this would be interesting to find out, what is your approach, I suppose, on game day, whether it's on the sideline or it's in the dressing room? Like, we all see these coaches where they're either going absolutely manic on the line, they're flipping tables in dressing rooms. Are you that type of manager or coach?
I think every manager and every coach was at one time.
Yeah.
But I think as you go through your coaching career and go through your managerial career, you see different ways of doing it. You know, there's times that it's needed and there's times that it's not needed. But again, it's all about the environment you create. If it's a player-centered environment, the environment should be led by the players. The manager realistically, has very little impact on match day. So flipping the tables, raising the voice, baiting the hurl off the wall or kicking bottles or, any sort of stuff like that. That's only, for me, that's only for show. It has no bearing on the players. The players don't see it. But if you can give it have a few key points, but again, if you have your work done pre-match, if you have your work done in the week leading up to your game or the week leading up to your game, very little has to be said in match day. It's only, different voices, tactical top-ups, little bits and pieces that's needed. And players will feed into that far more than, let's flip the table, let's, maybe pinpoint a player that's not doing well, stuff like this. That day is gone, that in my opinion. So, I'd be a little bit more conserved as a manager, and the people that are around me in the backroom team, trust them to be able to make sure the players are ready physically and mentally to perform on the day. The most important time in the game is halftime. That is the time that you can have the most influence, because whether that's switches, changes, matchups, tactical changes, maybe you're going down a player, that's the time where your messages need to be clear and concise and use the time as best you possibly can. And again, it's making sure your dressing room environment at halftime is correct, that it's not players going in, players feel like they need to talk. It's more so players go in, take a breath, sit down, reflect, get your tactical top-ups, get your key points from your coaching group, and then you're able to take to the field in the second half then with a clear and concise plan of what to do because maybe things weren't going well. And I think that's the way things have changed from my side of it as a manager. But then everybody's different, it's what it's what's best for the players. Yeah. And with the group that you're with, you have to figure out what is best for that group. And then sideline, again, similar, I'd be a vocal manager on the sideline, but again, it'd be it wouldn't be going at the referee, or it wouldn't be, you often hear now coaches shouting steps every 5 seconds. This sort of stuff, it only distracts away from it what's needed, and to have that clear mind to be able to make a 20-second decision on the line for a substitution or a switch or a change of approach. So you have to be level-headed and you have to be ready to be able to implement those changes.
Johnny, what's the biggest difference? Obviously, you've been working with senior county men's teams, senior and county ladies teams. What's the biggest difference, in your opinion, in terms of coaching or standards, or is there?
Between the ladies and the men? Yeah. To be honest with you, it's more the resources that are available. Okay. The men have all the resources in the world, but are they lacking a little maybe than what the women have? So, say from my experience in Westmeath, like the Westmeath Camogie group that I had, were phenomenal. They were just a brilliant bunch of great people, that when they were going training, were going places, weren't getting any expenses, weren't getting this, that, and everything else. That's all changed, thank God. Weren't getting food after training, were buying their own hurls, whereas the hurlers were being spoon fed, and maybe didn't appreciate it as much, and maybe it lacked a little bit of drive and a little bit of fight because of that, because they probably expected so much and wanted so much, but weren't willing to fight for it then. And I think sometimes that transfers onto the pitch as regards performances. When you're the underdog and you're down and you feel that you're hard done by, you perform a little bit better. And I think some of the teams are so well supported that sometimes they forget how to fight when they cross the white line, and fight being not fisticuffs, but fight as in fight for the jersey and have that will and want to be able to perform for each other.
Johnny, I know a lot of coaches will be listening to this on DSS when it goes to live or when it goes to air. But one of the biggest things, and obviously without giving away too many secrets, what does Johnny Greville's typical session look like, or what is your sessions built upon?
Yeah, so my sessions will be built on, say, I reflect on our previous games. So, if you're in season, so you're in championship season, you'd look back in your games and you'd look at, the key areas that you need to work on. Like, and I suppose this is probably a cliche again and a soundbite, but one of the key things that a lot of coaches forget about, and they go over top on the tactical, the system set up, where, when, and how, rather than, can the players execute the plan with the fundamentals at 100 miles an hour? So you need to get your fundamentals right. So your basic elements, and that sounds really simple, but it's done in with high intensity, under pressure, being able to execute the skill, get your touch, your striking, speed of what you're doing, get that to a level that's required before you can introduce any fancy system or setup that they might have seen some other team do. So I find coaches do jump 2 steps ahead and then implement this plan, but wonder why it's not being executed, because the players are not executing the fundamentals, which are your basic touch, control, the speed of your strike and your movement, your hand passing off the shoulder, your vision, your striking, your accuracy. All of those basic fundamental things are the foundation of any game plan. And, that's no secret really to be given away, but most teams, top teams, focus on that.
Johnny, we're almost home and hose.
Yeah.
What advice would you give for any, I suppose, aspiring coaches or young coaches starting off in their journey?
Yeah, this is really, and I've wanted to answer a question like this for years, because it's something I did myself when I was starting off first. So, you get your guest coaches in, back in my day, I had Davy Fitzop and Anthony Daly, Liam Sheedy, Derek McGrath, of all of these guest coaches up. And in my opinion, they were speaking the very same language as I was speaking, or any of my coaches were speaking. But because they were from a traditional hurling county, did it go in? It stuck a little bit more with people, and it was like the holy grail of what's needed to be done. Whereas the coach already has been doing that. So my advice is be yourself, be unique. Like in myself and yourself, working in the area, we're working in a lot of the courses that we do are geared towards groups of people. And the only issue I have with it is that it doesn't give people the opportunity to be individual, to have their own twist on it. And I always say to people, if everybody did the same thing in hurling over the next 10 years, the exact same setup, the exact same systems, the exact same training regime, it would cancel each other out. So we need the coaches that are coming through to, like, as I said, don't stand still, try things out, do things differently, be yourself, don't copy and paste, put your own twist. If you've seen something from another coach that you think will work well, put your own twist in it, make it unique to what you're looking to get out of your session. Not saying not use any of the stuff, I'm saying make it your own. The copy and paste model is there in football. And I suppose, look, go back to the Jim McGuinness time with Donegal, and there's a legacy from that now. That copy and paste has possibly brought football, the attractiveness of watching a football match is right back down. And we don't want to see the same in hurling. We want to see uniqueness. We want to see, coaches being innovative and, being trying things out and not being afraid to do it. And I definitely be one of those coaches. I'd always branch out and always try and do things different. They might not work all the time, but it's being brave enough to be able to try it.
I have 2 final questions for you, sir. What is Johnny Greville's biggest strength?
What's my biggest strength? biggest strength, I suppose, empathy and understanding. That's probably one of the things that, say, player-centered side. I would understand the players, would take all on board, always sit down, individually, one-to-one with players, and get to know them. That's a big thing.
Where would you like to see Johnny Greville in 5 years?
Oh, Jenny Mac.
Cancun.
Where's Johnny Greville in 5 years? I suppose in 5 years, again, I'd like to see myself another step forward, as regards my coaching career and my learnings. Now, this is with me, this is my first stint as, I said, I kind of always been the bridesmaid, now being the bride as regards, being a manager of a senior inter-county team. And I've learned an awful lot over the last number of years of how to do things right, and, the environment that you create. And, as I said to you already, it's really going to be a measurement of, when I finish up with Meath is, do I leave a sustainable structure there for me to be able to build and move forward on their strategic vision? And that's going to be my goal. And I suppose that's where I'll measure myself in 3 to 5 years,
Johnny, we leave it at that. Listen, unbelievable to have a good chat with you, and I'm sure especially all the hurlers and hurling coaches, I suppose even the coaches in general within the DSS group will really enjoy listening to that podcast. One thing I will say, guys, don't forget, if you want to log on to Deely Sports Science, www.deelysportscience.com, you will get all the information regards membership, resources, whatever you want. Other than that, I would wholly and thankfully want to give a huge thanks to Johnny Greville for a very, very good podcast, and wish him the very best of luck for 2025 with the Meath Senior Hurlers. Thanks, Johnny.
Yeah, I got it. Cheers.